In my first inaugural speech, I asked LA and Angelenos to dream with me, and it was a speech described by many as very lofty and an aspirational speech, and I get ribbed all the time. Oh, well, you know, he's a great dreamer. And one of the places where I got ribbed the most was, and it was almost, I think the first article on it was almost 6 weeks after the inaugural speech. Where's his subway to the sea? You know, the mayor campaigned on a subway to the sea. Where's that subway at? And of course, because I did grow up here and I cut my teeth in Tom Bradley's first campaign, although I couldn't vote in the '68 campaign. I remember being so excited about his candidacy. In '73, I was able to vote, and I was able to cast a vote for Tom Bradley. And I knew that Tom Bradley had campaigned to build a subway. Any Angelenos here remember that? And we all remember that Tom Bradley's the father of our subway. But Tom Bradley said he was going to build that subway in 4 years. He built the subway, no question about it. He led that effort. It took 20 years to build that subway. So when I got the ribbing early on, I said, well, that's what comes with this job. You gotta roll with the punches. Early on, we said, look, we know that the linchpin of any effort to rebuild our transit system, to move away from an addiction on foreign oil, to move toward the modern day city that's focused on moving people with public transportation, was going to be no small feat in a city addicted to the single passenger automobile, the city of sprawl, the quintessential city of sprawl. And so the first thing we did was we went to the great congressman representing the West Side, Henry Waxman, who had been the author of a federal prohibition against providing federal funds for a subway on Wilshire Boulevard, because we knew we had to get his buy-in, and that subway would be the linchpin of a system that would finally move people, connect the two biggest job centers in California, and importantly, provide the needed impetus for getting a broad-range transportation plan through the county. And we agreed that we put a group of experts together, and we did. And the experts came back, and they said what many of us thought they would say, but weren't exactly sure. There wasn't a science to support it. And that was that, and they came back unanimously, and that was that you could build this subway safely, that there was the technology today to build a subway through methane gas pockets that will connect the two biggest job centers in California. It then took 18 months to get through the Congress to remove that prohibition, because in the Congress, as the governor knows full well, one senator can hold up a bill without giving any reason, without even giving his or her name. And they held it up for a year. It took us about 18 months, finally removed the federal prohibition. Then we went to the legislature, and we said to the legislature, we want to put a measure on the ballot to double the rail system, to make the infrastructure investments in our highways, in our bridges, in our local streets that will move LA forward, that will begin to address climate change and carbon emissions, connecting people, be a conduit for a new Los Angeles where there's transit-oriented development along transportation lines, where we invest in the nodes, where we move people through public transportation, connect people to housing and jobs and recreation and shopping. And, you know, Governor, the way things go here, I am the mayor of LA, city of 4 million, but this is a region, and we have a county transportation system. There are many layers of government here. In fact, one of the problems when I end up coming to UCLA and maybe teaching as you are, we're going to talk about all these layers that you have to go through when you want to do anything in this town. But we went to the entire region. We went to all of the stakeholders, and we put a coalition together. And we barely got it through the legislature by one vote in each house. Barely got it to the legislature because almost everybody in the region was focused on their community, on a small community. Am I getting my fair share? We put this together based on the Metropolitan Transit Authority's assessments of what our priority projects should be based on ridership and transit dependency and air quality and congestion. But nonetheless, politicians being what they are, there's a lot of elbows moving and a lot of opposition. Well, I'm proud to say, despite that opposition, in the areas where there was the strongest opposition on the part of the elected officials, it passed with a 2/3 vote. It passed with a 2/3 vote because Los Angeles understands what the policymakers understand. We've got to be bold in addressing our transportation needs. This is still the congestion capital of the United States of America. This is still a city where the air quality is among the worst in the United States, in no small part because of our addiction to the single-passenger automobile. This is still a city of sprawl, a city where we're not investing in smart growth in public transportation. So we got a 2/3 vote. Well, they weren't finished yet. All the naysayers, and of course they were still saying, where's his subway to the sea? Well, we passed Measure R, half-penny sales tax, generating $40 billion over 30 years, investing in the highest priority public transportation projects, highway repair, bridge repair, local street synchronization, a bold plan, but a plan that, you know, it was a half-penny sales tax. It wasn't, someone said to me the other day, if this 30-10 plan is such a great idea, how come you didn't put it on the ballot? Well, then it would have been in a 1.5 penny sales tax. Get that passed with a 2/3 vote in the middle of a recession. You know, and so folks have, you know, almost the next day said, well, where's the subway to the sea? Took us a year at the Metropolitan Transit Authority to reaffirm the vote of the people, to put together the long-range plan that would implement Measure R, because the same naysayers that were against Measure R in the first place said, no, I don't want to do it. Why? I want more for my community. Well, after a year, we got a unanimous vote. And we got a unanimous vote because the fact was that plan was put together by the MTA staff. It was a plan that said prioritize based on the best projects. And in fact, the one or two projects that really never would have made it in that plan, except that we were trying to get public support, were the places where people were screaming the loudest. One of them was 17 out of 17 projects in terms of priority. The other one, I think, was 12. But we put them in because we knew we had to address the needs of the region, get buy-in from everyone. Well, we also realized something. We said, if we're going to continue to bicker around these projects because people are worried about if whether in the out years their projects were ever built, what do we do to kind of accelerate all of this? Well, you mentioned it, Governor. I used to be the Speaker of the California State Assembly, and when I was Speaker, I'm sorry that I didn't read your notes, but I mean, I read them, but I'm not going to read a speech today, but I know this by heart. When I was Speaker, people came to me, and I tell people, when you're Speaker of the Assembly, the UCs came to me, the community colleges, the school districts, the cities, the counties. Rich people, businesses, labor, environmental groups, everybody comes, and almost everybody comes with their hand out. And almost always, their hand is empty. So I learned early on, and I would say to folks, well, if this is such a great idea, what are you putting in the game? How much money are you putting up? oh, well, we don't have any money, and that's why we're coming to the state. And I'd say, well, we don't have unlimited money either, and, I'd be more excited if you put some money up, put some skin in the game. And I saw what that had the benefit of doing. It expanded what the state could do, forced folks, it incentivized these advocacy groups, these cities, counties, school districts, MTA, all of them, to do more, and the pie was enlarged as a result. So early on, we started thinking about how do we accelerate this? We went to the bond houses, and they said, hey, look, we know that a half-penny sales tax over 30 years will generate approximately 40 billion, might generate 42, 43, but it may only generate 38. So there's a delta here. We could finance the 38. We can't finance the 43 or the 40. So then they said, then we started thinking, well, what if we got a loan subsidy, a federal guarantee? What if we took advantage of some of the programs that currently exist, like the Tibia funds, like the Buy America bonds, the BAB funds? What if there was a demonstration project for the Economic Development Bank that President Obama has talked about? What if we kind of recrafted these to provide a guarantee, no money from the federal government, just a guarantee to put these projects on the ground now? And if you read the editorial in the LA Times today, the 166,000 job figure, which they said may or may not exist, I can't remember a time, and my staff will tell you this, I never put out a number unless that number has been given to me by some expert and saying, that number came from the LAEDC. It didn't come from Antonio Villaraigosa and his staff. It didn't even come from the Metropolitan Transit Authority. They've estimated that if we accelerate this 30-year investment into 10, we're going to generate 166,000 jobs. We're going to remove 500,000 tons of carbon emissions. We're going to save we're going to increase transit boardings by 77 million, and we're going to save $10 million, 10 million gallons of gasoline a year. We're going to put people to work now. And what are we going to do as well? We're going to stop the elbow in and the kind of naked politics that has prevented this town from doing so much over time. We're going to build some trust with the electorate, who didn't understand, many of them, that the half-penny sales tax generates these 12 projects over 30 years, not over 10. But what else are we doing? We're going to save money on the soft construction market. We're going to save money because over 30 years, the cost of construction, it's soft now, but it's going to move up. So we're going to save money there too. We're going to create the trust in government that when we say we're going to do something, we do it. So when we went to the Congress with this idea, I'll be honest, well, usually what happens, I don't want to thank Richard Katz here and my staff, because, I usually send the trial balloon out first, and they got beat up. They were laughed out of a few of these offices, names go unmentioned. They were said, yeah, we're not giving you. There's no program that could do this. We don't have any money. Well, we're not asking you for money. Well, we can't do this. And finally, we had a Chairman Oberstar, who heads up a relevant committee, and then Chairman DeFazio, and then Chairman Blumenauer, who said, you're on to something here. There's no money right now, but we got to create jobs. There's a 14% unemployment here. Everybody's coming with their hand out. You got a template to create jobs now without any federal money at a time of spiraling deficits and historic debt. Maybe We ought to invest in this program. Maybe we ought to get creative and do what the Congress was elected to do and figure things out to put shovel-ready jobs, invest in infrastructure, and get a template for what we ought to do around the country. And then, of course, the great senator from California, who heads the Transportation Committee, Barbara Boxer, got on board, Senator Feinstein, Ray LaHood, and the White House, after a discussion with Valerie Jarrett a couple of days ago, said, wow, what an idea. Now, I said, dream with me. I am a dreamer, but I'm also a doer. You're right, Mr. Governor. I've been Speaker of the Assembly. I've had big jobs, and I got a tough job right now. And I'm not just this idealistic kid anymore. I'm still a believer. I believe in the power of people to make change. But I also know this is going to be tough. Just because everybody's excited doesn't mean it's going to happen. 4 years ago, when I said dream with me, this subway to the sea was just a slogan. Today, the issue is not if, it's when. And you're right, I may be 76 years old, but I may be a lot younger than that. And so I'm asking you in the public policy world, and particularly at this esteemed institution, we need to get you, Governor, to write an editorial on this in the Huffington Post or the New York Times or the the Wall Street Journal or wherever it is. We need to get the big thinkers and the policy makers to say to the country that at a time when there's not, just unlimited amounts of money, we ought to be thinking creatively. We ought to be figuring out what we can do to move people and goods, what we can do to recreate cities, what we can do to create the kind of smart growth that every great city in the world, every city-state, and that's what we are, every city-state ought to be doing. And this city and cities across the nation haven't done enough in. So I wanted to be here to acknowledge your bold ideas to solve LA's traffic problems. I know there are a lot of small things we could do too. It's not just the big things. It's not just doubling the size of the rail system. I know Marty Wax and other folks who have worked here, and I know Marty's not here anymore, but all the folks who, the big thinkers, there's a lot of good things we could do. Like synchronizing lights. This is going to be a city where the largest big city in the United States of America where every light is synchronized. It was the only city to get money in Prop 1A to finish our synchronization. And it was a campaign promise I made. There's not a big city, this big, a million people or more, that's got every light synchronized in the way that we're going to have in about a year and a half. The fact is we could do a lot of things. But until we get people out of their single-passenger automobile, we're never going to do as much as we can to move them and to move them in a way that's smart and that is sustainable. And so I
want to thank all of you for spending the time with us here today. Check with us electronically. We will continue to have Rosenfield Forums. We'll be looking at the fall next year.